Hey, what's up, everybody? Welcome back to another edition of Vikings Spin. I'm your host, Jason Wisniewski, and we're back again with Mike Castellino. We're going to do kind of a bonus mock today and talk Vikings as well as some draft news updates here as rumor mills are flying around. Um, but first, Mike, we're doing this mock here because obviously, in part because my last what was supposed to be my final mock kind of got ruined with the Orlando Brown Jr. trade to Kansas City. But we're going to come back and try to come up with a different scenario here. But first, I just wanted to talk about quarterbacks because obviously, we have five top hyped quarterbacks here that are supposed to go in the first round. And, just some stuff that we've been reading on Twitter, just kind of wanted to address and get your thoughts too on first round quarterbacks, because I found an interesting statistic here. Over the last 20 years, you've had 60 quarterbacks taken in the first round. And I would say that less than 1/3 of those have been quote unquote hits. You got at least like 35 busts. Another, 7 of them you can say were all right. But less than 1/3 were hits. And those 60 quarterbacks have won 8 Super Bowls combined, while you have a 6th-round pick and 2 third-round picks that have won 12 in the same span. So you've got about a 12% Super Bowl rate with these quarterbacks. What are your thoughts on all of this?
Well, for me, I feel like people who would like to see us take a quarterback are being a little bit too rash, and they're looking at it from the perspective that Kirk's making a ton of money, and that if we got a rookie quarterback, it would save us a lot of cap, which in part it would. But the way I look at it is, like you said, there is a very low percentage that you're going to hit a Patrick Mahomes, a Josh Allen, even a Cam Newton type prospect, where even though, yes, there's 5 good quarterbacks in this class in theory, you can go back to the Josh Allen class, not that a few years ago, right, where it was Baker Mayfield number 1, and then it was Darnold came off the board with the Jets, Josh Allen went next, then it was Rosen, and then it was Lamar Jackson, which shows you 3 hits, yes, but still 2 busts that went in the class. And to me, from where Minnesota's picking anyway at 14, I highly doubt that we're going to hit one that's going to be a high-end quarterback that will be better than Kirk Cousins. That's the key here, is it needs to be an upgrade on the quarterback spot. Even though it's saving us a cap space, if it's not an upgrade, it's not worth doing. Because Kirk Cousins, you like him or not, I know that some people are, dislike him a little bit, and he's a little bit of a coin flip discussion in Vikings talk overall. But for me, he's a sustainable top 10 quarterback. Like it or not, it's very hard to find one that will be an upgrade on him.
Yeah, I agree. Basically, and my philosophy is on if you have a top 10 quarterback, unless they're 40 years old, you typically you don't want to move on too early. He's 32, going on 33. You still have guys like Aaron Rodgers playing at a high level. I think he's 36 or 37. And
Yeah.
if you look at what Green Bay did last year, I think they're probably kicking themselves for taking a first-round quarterback last year, because they were very close to the Super Bowl. And had they taken another impact player in the first round, maybe they would have got into the Super Bowl and possibly won it. Because they had a really close game with Tampa Bay in the playoffs.
I agree. And the thing was, even if it wasn't, necessarily a receiver, which they also needed, even if they got a high-end linebacker, they could not stop Leonard Fournette at the end of that game. It was a big part of why they lost. And that's why I agree with you 100%. I know Green Bay, yes, and Aaron Rodgers is a better quarterback than what Kirk Cousins. I'm not sitting here trying to get in that discussion, but I don't think it's a drop off enough to where we need to force a quarterback pick. And let's be honest with ourselves. If we're going to get one, it's going to cost a king's ransom to go and get. And for me, it's not worth that price when you already have a quarterback who is shown to be very serviceable and a top 10 fringe quarterback at his worst. He's a fringe top 10 quarterback. I honestly think he is a top 10 quarterback in my personal opinion. So for me, no, absolutely they should either stay at 14 and take best player available or trade up to get a lineman, which would cost significantly less. But yeah, no, 100%. Quarterbacks are not worth the risk unless you have the top pick and you get the Lawrence of the class, right? And most of the time, we're not in that situation. So, yeah.
Yeah, I think so as well. I think your team has got to bottom out first before you go doing that. I mean, you want to be picking higher anyway. You don't want to have to give up so much draft capital to go get a guy who may or may not pan out. I just don't think it's the right situation. I don't think it's anywhere near the right situation to do that at this point.
100%. And, I'm not going to take too much longer here because we do need to go into the mocks. But look what San Francisco had to pay to go up to 3. If we were trying to go up to 4 with Atlanta, in theory, right, to get the number 4 quarterback, mind you, we're probably giving up 3 first-round picks. It's not
Absolutely.
worth that.
Yeah, you're going to handicap your team for quite a while.
And I think we could agree on this one last point, is San Fran's their roster's farther ahead of ours. They have a good O-line. They have a significantly better D-line than us at times, especially edge-wise. So they can afford to do that and go and say, we are a quarterback away. And I also think Kirk Cousins is an upgrade on Jimmy Garoppolo. So that's another story, right? And Kirk Cousins was a guy that Kyle Shanahan loved, and I think actually would have loved to have rather than Jimmy Garoppolo. So, yeah, 100% I think we need to give Kirk Cousins more respect, and let's actually give him an offensive line that's serviceable. Case Keenum, everyone talks about Case Keenum. I see it all the time. Case Keenum had the best pass-protecting line in the Zimmer era and went to the NFC title game. Kirk Cousins has done way more than what Case Keenum did in that one season with much less around him. So 100%, they got to stick to Kirk and give him an actual chance to prove himself.
Well, yeah, because I think, the 1 year where the Vikings had a slightly below average offensive line instead of a terrible offensive line was 2019, and Kirk Cousins and the Vikings were 2 games away from the Super Bowl. So you've seen what he can do with just a little bit of help, not even a lot. But I'm in agreement there that if they bolster this offensive line, I think they can go really far.
I mean, it's pretty simple. I don't know why everyone needs to try to play, 3D chess here. Go and build the O-line and stop screwing around and thinking that we're going to get the next Patrick Mahomes, because the likelihood of it is very low. So I'd rather go and win with Kirk because he's proved you can win with him. He won't carry you, but you can win with him 100%. So let's go into these mocks unless you have something else you'd like to say on that.
Nope. No, I am ready to rock and roll here. So yeah, I'll go first here on this mock here. There's a lot of different scenarios that can play out, and we'll get into that later with a lot of the draft buzz here. But in this particular simulation, there were 4 quarterbacks taken before the Vikings pick here, and in this scenario, I have Mac Jones still on the board, and Washington coming up to get him with the Vikings. So I have them trading down here from pick 14 down with Washington. So I included a 2022 fifth along with pick 14 to Washington for pick 19 and their second round pick. And then at pick 19, I have the Vikings taking Elijah Vera Tucker out of USC.
That would be wonderful if they go and do that, and stabilize the interior offensive line. Now you have the ability to move Ezra Cleveland to left tackle, his natural spot, beside Elijah Vera Tucker at left guard. That'd be by far the best player he's ever played to beside on that area for the offensive line to me, other than obviously playing with Brian O'Neill. I'm talking about specifically the left tackle and left guard spot in Minnesota together has been an issue. They've had one, but not the other. And the trade value there would be tremendous. If we can go and trade a fifth plus 14 and get a first and a second, which I think we are going to acquire, my personal opinion. I definitely think they're going to get a second round pick. It looks like Rick is determined to do that. It would be brilliant. And it just the ability to get a high-end elite blue chip prospect in pass protection that Elijah Vera Tucker brings, you'd see a whole new passing offense, which is crazy to think about because how good and efficient we were. We didn't have that many passing attempts. We were near the bottom of the league, but Kirk was just super efficient with what he had. So it'd be tremendous.
Yeah, and in this one, I went with the Vikings getting a little bit better of the deal than I have in the past because I've done this trade before. But now that I think about it, sometimes when you have a team coming up for a quarterback, they do tend to have to overpay to move up. So that's why I made it a little bit more in the Vikings' favor here with trade value.
And I think you nailed the head because I think 100% New England would be picking Mac Jones in this scenario if he fell to 15. So you can gouge their eyes out. If if Washington really wants him, say, Washington, you got to give us a lot back because New England is going to take him in the next pick. So it's simple as that. Yeah, would be wonderful.
All right. So yeah, what do you got going on in the first round, Mike?
I also have a trade, and this one is still actually funny enough. It's a little bit relevant to the Orlando Brown trade that moved him off to Kansas City. So I have significant trade here. I have us trading picks 14 and 119 in exchange for pick 27 and 31 from the Baltimore Ravens. With my first selection, pick 27th overall in the NFL draft, the Minnesota Vikings select Samuel Cosmi, offensive tackle, Texas. And with Cosmi, you have a 6'7", 309-pound offensive lineman who had a 90.8 PFF grade. He's battle-tested with over 1,500 pass blocking snaps between left tackle and right tackle in his career. He earned a 90.7 pass blocking grade this past season. 3-year starter, so you know what you're getting with him. He moves well in space, and they consider him a big tight end on outside screens and outside zone plays, and it helps him in a pro rushing attack, which we implement. He has very impressive tape versus Oklahoma that I saw when I watched some tape on him. He completely controlled the Oklahoma defensive line. When I watched the tape, you saw Oklahoma got home regularly, but it was not on Sam Cosmi. It was on the opposite side, which shows you the type of player he has. He consistently won his reps, and his comp is, funny enough, a guy that the Vikings won a few years ago. For a fact, I know this. Connor Williams, another Texas tackle that ended up in Dallas a few years ago. So it would be a tremendous find for the Vikings to go and get Cosmi here at 27. And again, with Cosmi, the reason why I really love this pick is, like I said, he can play left tackle or right tackle. So if you want to move Brian O'Neill, which I know they've talked about, to left tackle, he could step in day one and be your right tackle. You could play Ezra Cleveland, whichever guard spot you feel, and you can finally have an offensive line that you believe in. So simple enough for me.
Yeah, I've also heard Cosmi have compared to Brian O'Neill's draft profile too. So that wouldn't surprise me at all. And I did watch some Cosmi. Probably needs to get a little bit stronger, but it's nothing nothing that's too alarming. Like you said, he does win the majority of his reps. In those big games. So that's a good sign to see. So Cosmi at 27 would be a solid pick.
Yeah, and like you said, Brian O'Neill is a very interesting comparison too, because you could see the athletic movement and the ability. And the thing when O'Neill came out, I remember this regular people said he's He's maybe not 100% ready. He's put a little bit of weight. He came in as a rookie and was absolutely phenomenal considering the circumstances as a second-round pick, one of the last linemen that was considered to be a quality player in his class. If Cosby fell to us at 27 in the scenario, because I don't have us in this scenario, obviously I don't have Darrisaw, Slater, or Penei Sewell falling. So I went and take the next guy that I think would be a likely candidate, especially for the scheme fit. It would be awesome for us. I think we can go and get a Cosme. You could pair him beside, Cleveland, or you could pair him beside, hopefully, a James Carpenter type, not, garbage of Dakota Dozier. So, yeah, that's the hope, is that we go and finally cement and make this offensive line good.
Sounds good to me. My next pick here, so with the pick that I got from Washington, which is the 19th pick of the second round, I have the Vikings selecting Richie Grant, the safety out of UCF. So I would say that, if he's available there, it'd be really hard to pass on him since, no extension yet for Harrison Smith, Xavier Woods on a one-year deal. I think that Grant, he's versatile. I think he's best as a single high in those situations where he can ball hawk, force turnovers. He had 15 forced turnovers in college, 10 interceptions, and 5 forced fumbles. So this guy goes and makes it happen. I think he would start over Xavier Woods, and Woods would probably fill that third safety role, maybe in the big nickel. But this could change games if this guy can come in and force a few turnovers this year. And I think he's got the ability to do that. I went back and really started studying the safeties more and more because these guys are going to get pushed down the board. And there's some really, really good talent that you can get in the second round.
I don't know, 100% safety would be a great pick in the second round. Obviously, if the scenario breaks that where we're able to get a trade like you had here. No, I would love a Richie Grant move, to bring him into this room, because again, like we talked about regularly on the last couple of podcasts, Harrison Smith and Xavier Woods are currently on one-year deals. We have no sustainability behind that. So again, we don't want to be playing Josh Metellus, right? We've talked about that regularly. And even if Woods, like you said, if Grant beats him out in training camp, tremendous. You have a phenomenal third safety to come in and contribute on this already stacked defense. It would be awesome. I think. And the ball hawking part of it, to me, I find is the most important. We were not able to make enough plays last season in our secondary outside of Eric Kendricks and Harrison Smith. Cam Dancer did it later on, but it was later on because, again, he was a rookie. It took time to acclimate himself to the NFL. So with a Grant add a fourth player like that to this defense, it will bring back the Zimmer, terrifically terrifying defense that we saw in 2017. We know how far that team went. It's, to me, this team simply needs to go all in on O-line and add quality players around it. And if you can add a Richie Grant after taking Elijah Hurd-Tucker, it'd be home runs. So it would be awesome to see. And yeah, that's all I got to say about that.
All right. What do you got at pick 31 from that trade?
So, yep. For me, at pick 31, I've taken Gregory Rousseau, the other edge out of the University of Miami. He wasn't an opt-out last season, which is why I personally think he will actually be here at 31. If he had stayed in school and played another season, I think he would have went higher. But he did have an insane, crazy 2019 season with 15 and a half sacks. But the one thing that could knock him a little bit is he only did have an 80.7 pass rushing grade, which shows he still needs a little bit of work, but his long and rangy movement is great for hand-on-hand battles because he's a former wide receiver. And you see it because he can spill and chase effectively against the run using his speed. Even though he only had a 4.68 40 time, he looks much faster on tape, which again, I think could make him a real value here. Running quarterbacks struggle to get away from him because of that speed that he shows. And that's a Zimmer weakness I've noticed, that where we've struggled against running quarterbacks in the past, especially with Mitchell Trubisky, who thankfully is gone now. Another fun thing with him is he's 6'6", 260. I couldn't find his PFF grade because like I said, he was an opt-out. But another little fun fact here is he wore number 15 in college, so he would be able to take advantage of the new NFL rule, allowing teams to edges to change up their numbers. So it'd be cool.
Hey, there you go, Gregory Rousseau. I absolutely would not mind. I think he's better than some people have given him credit for. I think, like you said, he's falling because of the opt-out, and that's what I'm hearing too. Is a lot of the opt-out guys are being pushed down the boards because they couldn't really show a complete evaluation. So, but you're as long as these guys have kept themselves in good shape, you really could wind up getting a home run with one of these picks that are getting knocked for that. So.
100%.
Yeah.
I was just going to say one last thing is he's a guy who I think with a little bit of, improvement in his fundamentals would be an absolute steal. And again, it's another guy who I think Andre Patterson would love to get his hands on, similar to Jason Away, who you had last month. A guy who needs a little bit of refinement. He's not fully, a finished, polished product yet, but if he gets that help and he ends up in this state with Andre Patterson, it could be a tremendous value, and he doesn't need to play right away. I've read a lot of things that he won't start right away. Maybe give him a little bit of a year where, utilize him as mainly a pass rushing edge. And again, with Danielle Hunter, with DJ Wadham, who I personally like and I've become a pretty good fan of, and as well as Stephen Weatherly, they don't need to force in an edge to start right away opposite Hunter. They can rotate. And one thing that I've personally been a fan of, and I'd like to see if I could implement more, is, rotation. I don't think we've done it enough in the Zimmer era, and it's the reason why we've gotten exhausted and blown games in the past. And if we can implement that with 4 solid edge rushers, it would be tremendous.
Yeah, and I'll say one more thing on that, because it kind of affected the way my next pick was. I was listening to Andre Patterson talk about edge rushers, and he's basically saying that he's basically evaluated guys in every round, and he was talking about his success in later rounds too, and his biggest thing was whether the player will respond to coaching or not. Sometimes these guys just want to do things the way they did it in college. So, it's hard for us to know because we haven't listened in on these evaluations when they're talking to these players, but whoever really strikes him with their personality and their ability to take coaching is probably, that's going to be the guy that they're going to take. So that should be interesting.
Mm-hmm. I agree. So who do you've got in the be the 3rd round now?
Actually, what I did here is I moved up. So I packaged the 3rd round pick 14, and then round 4 pick 20, round 5 pick 13 to Seattle, who only has 3 draft picks. So for their 2nd round pick, the 24th pick of the 2nd round. And I originally had an edge rusher here, but at the very last minute, I changed my mind because I'm hearing that Rondale Moore could be falling down the draft boards because of his height. And so I have the Vikings taking Rondale Moore out of Purdue, 5'7", 181 pounds. But man, I watched the film, and this guy is reminding me of Percy Harvin quite a bit with the shiftiness, the elite speed. I think it was 4.27 or something ridiculous like that. This guy is just an offensive weapon that could make the Vikings offense just downright scary.
Again, with we've talked about this. I'd imagine with that speed, he's got some return experience as well. I'd imagine, so that would be just an extra little added bonus. We talked about this. We need a guy who can stretch the field out, and is a significant improvement from what we currently possess in slot receivers with Olabisi Johnson and Chad Beebe. And I don't dislike those guys. I think they're solid players, but they're not a game breaker. And with a guy like Moore here from Purdue, You could go and get that burner, like you said, with the first year. And we have missed that dimension a tiny bit. You know, Jefferson was phenomenal last season. So was Steven. But then, you know, at times they were taken away in games. And, you know, we need that secondary option. And it can't always just be Irv Smith to be the number 3 guy to make a play. If we can go and add a quality third wide receiver, it would be tremendously huge. And it needs to happen. I think that's a need this team needs to go and complete early. I've changed my opinion. Initially, I kind of was looking at wide receiver 3, maybe in the 4th round, maybe the 5th round. Forget it. You know what? You made a great point, too. And I was thinking about this, and this is why I've changed my opinion on this a little bit. The edges, I think, like you said, Andre Patterson likes to mold those clay guys later in rounds anyway because they listen to his coaching. We can go and get a quality number 3 receiver by trading up in the 2nd round again. It would be phenomenal. And like you said, I think Seattle is going to move out of that pick. It's dependent on who gives them the most picks to get out. So if we did that, it would be tremendous. And, you know, the extra value of return, man, we do need that as well. So it'd be a tremendous, another home run in my opinion.
No doubt. So what do you got next for us, Mike?
So I went a little bit different and a little bit off script from what I had usually done in my mocks. 3rd round at pick 78, I gave the Vikings Kyle Trask, the quarterback out of Florida. He is 6'5", 240 pounds. Another reason why I think he might actually end up being a Vikings. We met virtually with him. He balled out in college last season, had a PFF grade of 92.2. He led the nation with the most big-time throws at 41. He's great at making throws from the pocket, which I've talked about I enjoy more in quarterbacks. He was the first FBS quarterback in 15 years to throw 3 touchdowns, 9 consecutive games. Some weaknesses, though, because, again, this is the number 6 quarterback of the class. His footwork gets sloppy and bouncy in the pocket, kind of like Josh Allen when he first came out of Wyoming. Will miss blitz recognition and basic reads at times. And, of course, this is a big one. He was helped big time by Kadarius Toney and Kyle Pitts. But he does have good touch on, you know, some more positives. He does have good touch on his throws, and he does have very good accuracy. But you can tell on some of his throws, he does not have a cannon arm. Sometimes balls kind of get in there a little bit slow, kind of floaty a little bit. His comp is Brad Johnson, which kind of scares me, former Minnesota Viking quarterback, who was not particularly good. But yeah, that's all I got to say about Kyle Trask. It would be a nice guy to have behind Kirk, and I think this is another sneaky need the Vikings have is they need to get a backup that's not Sean Mannion. We've talked about this regularly here. It cannot happen. It's unacceptable. They cannot, I do not care, cannot bring back Sean Mannion. Go away. Don't ever come back. Don't let the door hit you on the backside and just get out. Just get out, leave our team. I do not want to see him. We need to improve the backup quarterback spot because, again, knock on wood with Kirk, he's had tremendous health in his career, but God, you know, God only knows what can happen, right? We do have elite pass rushers in our division with Zadarius Smith and Khalil Mack. One hit can do it. So, and again, Kirk is not, you know, the most mobile guy. If he takes a shot the wrong way, maybe on the run, it could get ugly. So you do need to put a solid, stable quarterback who can come in and win a few games if you need it. And Kyle Trask, I think, can be that.
Yeah, absolutely. You know, you look at Trask, and I think he has the, you know, the touch and accuracy that that, you know, he could come in and do that for you. And that's actually what my thinking was. And you know, after the first 5 quarterbacks go, it's really up in the air where these other guys can go. I've seen projections for guys like, you know, you're talking Trask, Mond, Mills. You know, you see anywhere from rounds 2 to 4 with these guys. And it's funny because I did the same thing. I did a minor trade down here with Baltimore, traded for my next one, round 3, pick 26 to Baltimore for round 3, pick 30, and round 5, pick 40 comp pick there. So we trade down 4 spots, pick up a 5th, and we select Davis Mills, quarterback out of Stanford. He, like Trask, he flashed enough on film, so you know you can see the potential that he can be a good quarterback with the accuracy. I just, similar to Trask, he needs to be more consistent with his reads. He gets a little streaky from time to time, but like we've said, it's an upgrade from Sean Mannion as the backup. You have a guy with a pulse that could come off the bench if God forbid anything happens. So, and maybe this is a guy that can develop, a few years down the road. We've seen it with third and fourth round quarterbacks. Kirk Cousins, fourth round, Russell Wilson, third round, Dak Prescott, third round. It's actually not a bad spot to pick a guy that to develop. But at the worst, you're looking at a decent backup.
Yeah. Mills, I actually think is a little bit more likely than Trust to be here. But you make a good point. You never know where these quarterbacks go after the top ones. I've seen classes in the past where Matt Barkley and Ryan Nassib were supposed to go round 2. I remember that. They did not. They went much later, and yes, they ended up mounting to very much. And if Chris mind you, I would take Matt Barkley as backup. If you want to come to Minnesota, I'm good with that, Matt Barkley. You can head in the door. But again, with a guy like Davis Mills, again, like you said, he has that natural flashy ability with his arm, but he's a little bit raw. Again, to be expected when you're taking a second or third round quarterback. In theory, it could tremendously shock you, just like a Dak has done in the past. Wilson, Nick Foles, former Super Bowl MVP. So it can happen. So again, yeah, like you said, we need a guy with a pulse who can come in and contribute, not garbage old men who do not have ability anymore. So yeah, 100% they need to go and bring in a quarterback with upside. And I know Mills could be a sneaky dark horse here. I've heard lots of things that he could shock the NFL and come in and be a real upside guy because, he did not have as many reps as other guys in this class. So he could be a real big dark horse and steal. So absolutely another guy I would love to see on the Vikings roster.
All right. And so what's next up for you?
So like I said, I didn't make any trades outside of the one that I had made with Baltimore. So I stuck with round 3, pick 90. I like this pick a lot. It's a fun one. Armando St. Brown, wide receiver out of USC. With St. Brown, this is one thing that I've been looking at and I've talked about, very much. At 6'1", 195, he's a perfect slot wide receiver build. As his freshman and sophomore seasons, he balled out as a slot guy in USC. But in 2020, playing on the outside, he struggled. He has some of the better he's one of the better route runners in the class. He's crafty on release with his techniques and adjusts routes and scrambles open when a quarterback extends the play, which Kirk, I have noticed, has done more and often. The last season, he had tried to get outside the pocket and move around, right? Especially we love to do the play action fake where he goes and scrambles on it, and makes a nice throw. Because Kirk is very good on the run off play action. His comp is Keenan Cole, the Jaguars wide receiver, who I like. If you go and watch, one thing that sticks out, irribly and obviously about his slot abilities, his 2019 tape versus Notre Dame shows that he can get some good yak over the middle. He's not the quickest guy by any means in this class. He only ran a 4.51 with a 71.1 PFF grade, like I said, because he did play a lot more an outside receiver this year, which is why I think he'll slip to possibly pick 90 in the draft. And again, I've talked about this regularly with you. I don't care if the guy can play outside wide receiver. We don't need it. We really don't. We need a high-end slot guy. And if Armand St. Brown comes in here and becomes an elite slot guy in the NFL right away, that's exactly what we need. And if Kirk Cousins can have Armand St. Brown, Irv Smith, Justin Jefferson, Dalvin Cook, and Adam Thielen in the red zone with a comparable good offensive line, oh boy, we will be a top 5 offense. We will. It's just simple as that. If they go and address this whole line and give him just one solid high-end receiver, this offense could be absolute fire.
Oh, absolutely. I think St. Brown is a smooth route runner. I'm trying to think, is he related to the Packers receiver?
It does. I mean, I'd imagine they have the same last name.
Yeah.
I wouldn't be surprised. I mean, both high-end players, right? Both are going to get drafted. Is
Right.
obviously his brother with the rival.
Yep.
So if we go and add the better one, it looks like, because I remember Aquis St. Brown dropped a huge 2-point convert in that game that you mentioned earlier against Tampa Bay. So if we can go get the better brother, hopefully,
Yeah.
it'd be a nice, it'd be a nice little ad, and it would be tremendous.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I think this is the better of the two. I think
Uh-huh.
he's got better hands and route running. So, yeah, I mean, for him to come in, I think that's a guy that has the route running ability to come in and probably play right away. So that's a good
Yep,
pick.
yep. So who you got? So you're still in the third round, correct? Or do you not have a third anymore now because the trade down?
Oh yeah, now I don't. That was my last third. So now I'm into the fourth.
Okay.
Um, Round four, pick 14. I went with James Hudson, the offensive tackle from Cincinnati, 6'5", 313 pounds. Um, I've heard a little bit of chatter about guard too. So, I mean, he has potentially has position flexibility, but he did play offensive tackle exclusively in college. He's a little raw, but, you know, um, he's a really, really good athlete who can handle the zone scheme, reach blocks, good second level guy. Has to work on the pass pro um, to be more, consistent with his footwork. That could be why some people are saying the slide inside the guard. But this is a guy that would be a scheme fit and could potentially be available in the top of the fourth round. I think the plan, obviously, if they took Vera Tucker like I did earlier in this draft, he's going to be the one to start. Maybe they add a James Carpenter, kick Cleveland out to one of the tackle spots, and have this guy develop on the bench.
Yep. Uh, Before I get into James Hudson, James Carpenter, no matter what,
Right?
and with James Hudson, I mocked him. I believe it was last draft. Um, I really like James Hudson. I think he's a perfect scheme fit. And like I said, his tape on Aziz Ojulari enough for me personally makes him a player I want on this team. And again, we've talked about this regularly. Our depth is not strong at guard by any means. If we can go get the bulldozer out, any means necessary. You got to convert James Hudson from a tackle to a guard. Do it. And I think he'd be a tremendous depth player, worst case. And again, he's an actual player who, if you bring into training camp, will compete for a spot because he has upside. And yes, I do see where you're saying where he's a little raw. Like I said, I mentioned prior, he only does have 11 starts in his career, like you said, right? He's a little bit unexperienced. But I think, you know what? Why not bring in a guy who actually has great upside and could be a tremendous steal? We do need to take chances on this offensive line instead of just taking guys like Colby Gossett who are too late, who's now no longer on our team anymore, and these late flyers, like we've taken too much in the past. We need to go and get at least two guys in the top 4 rounds. It's unacceptable anything less. So I 100% would bang the table for James Hudson. I would love to see him head to the purple and gold in Minnesota. It'd be wonderful. I think his upside is huge, and he's like I said, he was one of my favorite players when I watched some tape. Yeah, I want him.
Oh yeah, no doubt about it. I mean, and whether maybe he would need to sit a year, maybe he wouldn't. I mean, the Vikings. This has kind of been like an irritating point for me is that they won't. If a guy is if he's first round or second round, he's got a chance. Usually, the first round guys will play. The second round, it just drives me nuts. Like it took all these injuries to get Cleveland on the field. It took 2 injuries to Rashad Hill for them to play Brian O'Neill in his rookie year, and finally just leave him in the starting lineup. Like James Hudson could probably come in and probably would be good enough to start, but they wouldn't start him. So
No, I know exactly what you're saying.
that's why I'm like adamant about getting James Carpenter because I really don't want them to start Dakota Dozier because they would.
Oh, they will. I'm scared.
So, but yeah, I mean, I guess I won't say anything more about it, but I like James Hudson. I'll just put it that way.
Before I get into my next player, I just want to say one last thing. That's a tremendous point you've made, and you know the accountability is not there with this coaching stuff enough. I'm sorry, it's unacceptable that Drew Samia and Pat Elflein had to get injured. It's you played Ezra Cleveland, who I guarantee looked better in training camp. The fact that Mike Zimmer all the time, you know, they look good, but you know the big veteran players, they look a tiny bit better. Just through sheer arrogance, and I know that's what it is. And it's Rick Dennison patting him on the back elbow and saying, "This is my guy. You got to start him, Rick or Mike." And he does it. He has zero accountability. He's done this, and I'm not going to rant too much, but it's annoying at this point. You've been here 7 years, man. Enough. Like, how delusional do you need to be to stick with these players who don't deliver? No other team does this, where they trot out garbage game after game, no matter what they're doing. There needs to be accountability. Enough. Absolutely enough. I'm sick of it. I'm absolutely sick of the garbage attitude that Mike Zimmer possesses. My way is the best way. That way gets you fired and gets you out of the NFL as an NFL head coach. You're going to be back being a defensive coordinator for the Cincinnati Bengals, and if that's what you want, go ahead. But I'm sick of it. And this year, to me, I don't want to go too much far off track, and I will stop soon. He needs to go and give the guys an opportunity, have a real competition. It's embarrassing. Brian O'Neill should have been okay. With Brian O'Neill, I'll give him a tiny bit of a pass because he wasn't expected to start right away. I remember Mike Mayock talking about that when he came out of Pittsburgh. But Ezra Cleveland was. He was a first-round talent in theory. There was people who had him going to the Vikings in the first round. And the fact that you were arrogant enough not to play him because Dakota Dozier, I hope he's cut. I just because I have a bad feeling. Now, I'm going to make one last point. If Carpenter came to this team and started, again, Super Bowl pedigree, started in the Super Bowl, that's a huge upgrade too. I don't want to get too much further than that because that might be for another podcast on about free agents. But with my first fourth-round pick, 125, I took a really fun prospect, Tyree Gillespie from the safety from Missouri. With him, he poses great size at 6 foot tall, 277 pounds for a DB. That's quite good. Obviously, he's got the movement and size of an NFL safety. He played his best game this season. This is one thing I love about him against Alabama with those two high-end beasts of Devontae Smith and Jalen Waddle. He's aggressive with his pad delivery, and he will hit and dislodge that football. He's good at reading quarterbacks and will shade his coverage accordingly. Also played solid in hanging in with Kyle Pitts, the high-end tight end out of Florida, who will probably go top 5 potentially. Some weaknesses, though, because, again, late-round pick, there will be weaknesses. He has no INTs in his college career. But for me, and this is maybe a bit of a hot take, but this is kind of how I look at him, it could be a Cameron Dantzler type steal, and a little, obviously, different position with the safety from a cornerback. He only had a 64.4 PFF grade, but his timing, he showed this one play in his tape where he completely timed and bodied off hits and knocked down a pass. Those type of abilities that he has is something that we've missed in this team at times, with that physicality and aggression to go and get the football, not sit back, not be afraid to make a play. And I think that's something that we missed last season. We were afraid to go and make the play to win us, a game. And I think with Tyree Gillespie, he's not afraid to do it. And his tape, for me, the clutch tape against Alabama and Florida, against 3 prospects that will be first-round picks, to me makes him absolutely worth a pick at 125.
Yeah, that's really that's a really good evaluation when you're looking at guys and you see who they've gone up against. So the fact that he did that against Florida and Alabama, you mentioned Kyle Pitts, that's a big deal. And like we've discussed before, this safety class, you're gonna find some really good players from rounds 2 to 4 in this class. So absolutely dipping into it here in round 4, no problem with it at all.
And the thing is, just like with the reason why I compared him to Dancer a little bit. Do you remember how Dancer? I remember when he came out, though he was small, right? physically and needed to put on some weight. It's different this way with Tyreek Gillespie, but this tape he had on Shamar Chase made him worth it to take that chance. That he completely shut down an elite receiver who will go be the first wide receiver, mind you, in this draft. The same thing applies here. If he can do that against elite competition in college on a garbage team, no offense, Missouri fans, if you see this, they're not a big school. Let's be real. They're not an Alabama. They're not a Florida. They're not going to ever compete for the national title. So, their prospects and players are not going to have as many drafted guys, right? So the fact that he was able to stick out on that team as well as he was shows the type of player he could be. So what you got next?
Next for me, so this is round 4, pick 29. I went with Cam Sample, who the Vikings have met with virtually. Defensive end out of Tulane, 6'3", 267 pounds. Sample, he was originally earlier in this process. There were, people were saying this is a tweener guy, maybe 6th round, but I have read that he lost about 20 pounds, and then he ran, I don't know if it was 4.5 or 4.7, something in that area. I don't know if it was 4.59 or 4.79, but so the point being that he ran faster than people were anticipating. And he also has the ability to move inside on passing downs. So this is a guy that could be part of, like you were mentioning before, a rotation at defensive end. There's really nothing wrong with having a rotation opposite Danielle Hunter. And, like we talked about before, maybe this is a guy that will take to Andre Patterson's coaching. Maybe this is why they like this kid. He played for Tulane. I get it. It's not, a huge school or anything like that, but he shows you, the traits that you want, out of a pass rusher. The fact that he did go out there and prove that, he does have the speed to hang on the edge. I'm gonna trust Andre Patterson's judgment here and give this kid a shot.
How's it feel this much? How's it in his tenure in Minnesota? If Andre Patterson says he's worth it, I'm gonna believe him. With a guy like Cameron Sample, like you said, the fact that he was able to impress could probably make him a late 4th round pick. With me, like I said, this is a scenario where I'd be more than happy to get a guy like this. And, like you said, he has the potential to be a defensive tackle or an edge potentially. And with us, we do have a small need. It's not a huge one, but at defensive tackle, edge rushing wise. And the fact that he has edge experience with Sample could make him a nice guy to use, even if he's just used, on the occasional 3rd down to rush the quarterback in the middle of the pocket, right inside, to set up Hunter and, in my mock, Rousseau, right? It'd be tremendous. I think there's nothing wrong with taking a guy with upside who can shock us, and be a nice turnout player, and being able to rotate, and I know the Vikings have done this in the past. They like to use edges inside at times. They did it with Danielle Hunter and Everson Griffin in the playoff game against the Saints 2019. So it's definitely something that Andre Patterson does not mind using and executing if he feels right to do it. I would like Cameron Sample, absolutely. This round, you get a guy with traits with Andre Patterson. I'm taking my chances.
Yeah, I'm really a fan of that 4 defensive end look. Because I believe that's what they were doing against the Saints in the playoffs. They had Everson and Danielle inside, and they had Holmes and Afadi outside. It was very interesting look, but it's like your fastest players on the defensive line, basically.
And like you said, right, we have it. If we get a DN like a Sample, we could do that because you got Wadham, you got Hunter, and you've got Weatherly. You can execute a system like that at times. Obviously, it's depending on the scheme fit versus the team, right? You're not going to do it in every game, but it's nothing wrong to have in your back pocket in a big moment where maybe you get a strip sack. You make a huge chunk, a big play that changes the momentum. So yeah, I would love to see that.
Yeah, especially if you're against a running quarterback, having all that speed on the defensive line may be a good idea.
Mm-hmm. Funny enough, we did it against the Saints with Drew Brees. Yeah.
Oh God, and then
But,
yeah, against a sitting duck, basically.
yeah, but it worked. It did work. That's why I personally, like I mentioned it, I'd like to see it again. With me, pick or second, fourth round pick at pick 134. Took one of my actually underrated guards in this class, Deontay Brown out of Alabama. His comp is Gabe Jackson, and he has great size at 6'4", 350. And I'm going to be real with you. That weight makes me happy. I want a guy who's going to mop you. I'm sick and tired of getting guys pushed back at pancake block onto the floor by Hakeem Nicks. It's not going to happen against a guy like Deontay Brown. Another thing with him is very wide and powerful. He's adequate on the initial quickness off the line. Able to match power as a base blocker, of course, at that size. In 2019, he had some very nice disciplined feet that he showed as a run blocker as well. His weaknesses, though, he's got shorter arms and small hands. He's not an outside zone fit, of course, at that size.
Right.
He's got he's a little bit slower, but his strength on his tape. Well, if you have time, when he played right guard, he was right guard against LSU, who ended up winning the national title in 2019. He dominated them inside. He put guys on the floor, and the ability to stick out on that offensive line, right, with the prospects that Alabama cranks out every year on their offensive line. They always have a good one. This year it being Alex Leatherwood. I wanted Deontay Brown. I'm sick and tired, like I said. BFF grade, also might as well mention it, 64.9. It looks a little bit low, but you got to consider the competition, the teams that they play with Alabama. It's a solid grade for me. Very similar to Wyatt Davis as I looked at it. So, and Wyatt Davis is considered to be a second-round pick. With Deontay Brown, like I said, he's a guy who I think will be a mauler. What is wrong with having a mauler on your offensive line? I don't care if he's not going to help Dalvin Cook get out on a screen. Use, in my mock, right, I've got Cosme already drafted. Go just execute the left side. Use, Cosme and Ezra. And this is the thing that actually goes back a little bit of time. The Vikings sometimes very frustrate me that they cannot get 4th and 1s regularly, 3rd and 1s and 4th and 1s. With a Deontay Brown, that ain't going to be an issue. He's going to push you forward. He is, like I said, 6'4", 350. That's by far not going to be his weakness. His strength and his power is something this team has missed. And I get it. It's nice to have a scheme pick, but there's nothing wrong. And I honestly feel like this is the reason why we passed on Orlando Brown, which makes me probably not think we're going to get a prospect like this. There's nothing wrong with having a guy who does not perfectly fit the system, but it's just a darn good football player. And I think that's what Deontay Brown is.
Yeah, I mean, you never know. I mean, they did implement a few more gap concepts. They started to mix it up a little bit, and Clint might mix things up a bit too. He mentioned that he may do some variations and things. So you never know, but personally for me, I wouldn't have a problem with it. So no complaints here.
I just try not to get my hopes up, knowing that it's very rare that the Vikings actually would do something that would be against the grain but positive.
Right.
So I that's why I try to put that out there, that he probably won't be a Viking, but if he was, it'd be awesome. So who you got here in with your next pick?
Yep. So I'm still in a 4th year round for pick 38. This is a pick here that I went with Derek Barnes, linebacker out of Purdue. He's an athletic guy. He's 6 feet, 238. He's really tough. He needs to work on his reaction time a little bit so that he can use that athleticism to its full potential. But he's a guy that you could develop. He's tough enough. His scouting report here reads he's tough enough to handle run defense as either a middle linebacker or outside linebacker in a 4-3. Ran 4.57 40, 37-inch vertical, 29 bench reps. He's also played some defensive end, so he's a good adept at blitzing. So this is a guy that can come in, sit behind, vigil, and provide depth in special teams probably as a rookie. But this is a guy that probably has the physical traits to be that third linebacker going forward.
And that would be a good pick because again, Derek Barnes, correct? That's his. Yeah.
Yep.
So Derek Barnes would be a guy to me who could come in, contribute, like you said, right away on special teams, and will not be pushed into the fire too much. And guys, we do need depth at linebacker. It's again, we lost Eric Wilson this offseason. I don't know how much I trust Troy Dye. I'm not so sure if he's going to turn out. So adding an extra linebacker here in the 4th round, and you'll see I have a similar idea to you, is a good idea. We do need to add depth because I don't think Anthony Barr will be back. I don't. I think he took that pay cut, wanting to get a huge amount of money when the cap goes up next offseason, and that's okay because at the end of the day, we've been able to utilize Eric Kendricks well. He is our star-studded linebacker. There's no debating it anymore. People thought it was Barr at one point. It's by far not. But we do need some depth at linebacker, and I think that a Derek Barnes would bring that to us.
Yeah, you can get depth at linebacker this year. Maybe planning for the number 3 spot. Maybe next year, Barr leaves, we could draft linebacker earlier in the draft.
Exactly.
The following year.
100%. Yep. With my last 4th round pick 143, I took Cameron McGrone, linebacker, Michigan. He's 6'1", 236. He had a PFF grade of 58.9, but he has a good build. He has good understanding of attack angles, reads keys, and understands blocking schemes. He's willing to take chances to make big plays. Again, very similar I talked about to with Tyree Gillespie. It's something I want to see this team do more of behind the line of scrimmage specifically. His sideline to sideline range is, okay. It's average. It's adequate. But some weaknesses. He had limited game action overall in his career. He's only played 16 games. He was injured in 2020 with a lower body injury, missed about a month. Another positive with him is that he had 3 sacks in his career at Michigan. Funny enough, I found this was hilarious. He had 2 sacks on Nate Stanley, who is a statue, and not a surprise that he got to home on him a few times. One play that really stuck out to me that I love to see was his Wisconsin tape of 2019. He made an absolute nice sideline play from the middle area of the field to the corner of the end zone where the quarterback or the running back was trying to find the pylon, and he completely took him down and smashed him down on the ground. It was a tremendous, nice play. Again, it's a guy, like you said, we need to add depth on this team. And again, I think we need to add a guy who could just be a good blitzing linebacker. That's something he brings, right? Like I said, he had a game where he had 2 sacks in his career in college. He might be a guy you just execute and use once in a while to blitz a quarterback. There's nothing wrong with that. Again, a guy who will contribute right away on special teams. And down the line could be a nice find for us. I think we have the same idea, and I think it's a good idea. We do need to add depth along this linebacker room. So I think it's something that we should do. And, that would be a good decision if it happens.
Yeah, and like you said, he'll him and Nate Stanley will meet again. Funny you bring up Nate
Maybe
Stanley.
not. Maybe he gets cut. Maybe they bring in Kyle Trask and he doesn't head back in, and that's okay because let's be real, Nate Stanley got cut because he's not good.
Right.
So,
well,
but probably a camp arm. So.
Yeah, Nate Stanley. It's just funny you bring him up because I think he just had to give up his number for Patrick Peterson.
As he should.
Yep. I'm not. My next pick here is 5th round. So I had 1 5th round, or no, actually, no, 2 5th rounds. My bad. So the first of my 5th round selections is Avery Williams, a cornerback return specialist out of Boise State, 5'9", 197. He was a special teams player of the year for his conference. He's a slot cornerback. This guy on special teams, so he handled both punt returns and kick returns and was on punt coverage and kick coverage. He had blocked punts. He scored 2 touchdowns apiece on punt and kick returns. last season and finished his college career with 6 punt return touchdowns and 3 career kick return touchdowns. So he's regarded as a day 3 slot corner, but this guy is, if we're just going off of the college tape, he's basically the best special teams player available.
That would be great. You know what? Like, I think, some people might scoff at 5th-round pick on a high-end special teamer who can maybe be slot. I actually like the idea that he is a slot corner because we talked about Jack Gladney. We don't know how that's going to end up. So there's nothing wrong with adding some more depth that side of the cornerback room. With a guy like an Avery Williams, I would love it. I think that's something we need to do. We need to get a high-end returner. Enough, with KJ Osborne. I honestly, no disrespect to him. He could be a great guy, but he's not good at returning. He fumbled so many times last season, the big months before he got hurt. Enough. I don't want to see him back. If he gets outbeat by a guy like an Avery Williams, who's just you said it, right? He was special teams player of the year in his conference with Boise State. Probably was a teammate of Ezra Cleveland and Alexander Madison as well.
Right.
Very nice added bonus, chemistry, and a guy that I would be a fan of. I think we need to go and get a high-end return guy in this class. I don't care if it's in the 5th round, because to me that's not a reach. To me that's not a stretch. To me that's a good value, because if he's a bona fide all-pro return man, like a Devin Hester was, like a Cordero Pasha was, it's worth it. Now, that's my personal opinion on that. I think it would be tremendous. And if he becomes a good slot corner, God willing, could be even better. Press Mike Hughes too, right? Make Mike Hughes earn his spot on the roster as well. So it'd be a good decision.
Yep, absolutely. What's your next pick?
So I have a different slot corner, but it's a little bit different overall. With pick 157, I have us taking Shaun Wade, cornerback out of Ohio State. With Wade, he's an ideal Zimmer corner. 6'1", 196, big body with long frame. Has starting experience inside and on the outside, but as I'm going to say here, he can be a plus run defender, which means he's better in the middle of the field. He has upside as a jammer / gunner on special teams. Weaknesses, he got dominated by quality wide receivers on the outside. To me, he's strictly a slot cornerback. That's why I have him here. He also, another negative is he lacks urgency at times and heart, which is something that scares me because brings back bad memories of that 2017 playoff game where it looked like the defense completely gave up. As well as he had a 67 PFF grade, and just like I said, his 2020 tape against Clemson just purely shows he is not an outside corner. If you use him as an outside corner, you're going to get badly beat because he likes to shade down, which is obviously better as a slot guy than it is on the outside. You give room to an outside receiver, they're going to pick up a first down 10 times out of 10, 90% of the time, unless you have tremendous off-the-ball speed, which he does not possess. So like I said, he's purely guy to me who could be a nice upside and add depth to this team as a special team gunner. And worst case, he could play some slot for us and not be a complete liability. I think he could be a quality slot guy. He's shown some good tape in 2019, specifically in the slot in the middle of the field. He's not going to be a guy you want to put on Devontae Adams by any means. So strictly slot guy, but a good value to have in the slot. 6'1", 196. That's a guy. That's an ideal slot guy because he can absolutely bully guys in the slot who are traditionally smaller players. Right? That was where Julian Edelman played. Especially you see guys like Edelman, Amendola, Scotty Miller, smaller wide receivers. So it'd be good to have a guy who could just absolutely physically take advantage on in the off the line and get there. So to me, I think Shaun Wade would be a great value at this round.
Yeah, I mean, there's nothing wrong with these cornerbacks that are pure slot guys. I mean, there's a lot of them out there. A lot of successful slot cornerbacks in the NFL you wouldn't put outside. You had guys through the years like Roby Coleman, Nickel Roby Coleman, Mac Alexander. You wouldn't put him outside. He thrives in the slot. So. It's a niche position, and it is what it is. But it's they still add good value to your team overall.
Yeah, and the way I look at it is, let's be real here. With Jack Gladney, he was a first round pick. you need to secure something with depth in case that goes awry, right? It'd be a tremendous bust, but like I said, if the law says so, it's deserved. And I want, like you said, you don't want to. To me, I look at slot guys more as third to fifth round guys anyway. I don't like taking them particularly high because, like you said, it's a niche position to begin with. So yeah, this is exactly where I'd like to get a guy like a Shaun Wade, who I think is actually only fallen because Ohio State made a silly mistake playing where he could not play, and probably would have been more of a third round pick if he had just played his natural position. I looked at the tape, compared the years, and by far he's a guy who's going to be way more beneficial from playing slot guy in the middle of the field. So yeah.
Yep. And then I did another niche position here with my next pick. This is the final pick of round 5. I got this in a minor trade down with Baltimore. So round 5, pick 40, Darius Stills, defensive tackle, West Virginia, 6'1", 278, nickel rusher only, but he does it well. Should at minimum provide some depth and competition. Maybe he can push James Lynch and Hercules Mataafa for that role.
And I know Devon Stills, if I'm not mistaken, met with us as well virtually. So another hint that he could end up being a Viking. And like I said, we do need a guy who could just be a straight up rusher as a defensive tackle. No disrespect to Michael Pierce and Delton Johnson, and I love having them. Let me make that perfectly clear. I am very thankful that they're going to be in here and be the Williams wall. They're not going to shock you. They're not going to be Aaron Donald ever in a game where they're going to get home. It's not their forte. Dalvin maybe, but I'd rather have a guy beside Dalvin on an obvious pass rushing role where you take Michael Pierce off the field. I think he looks in tremendous shape and might shock us this season with his pass rushing ability. Bold take, but I think he will get home a little bit this season. But just off of history, they're not prolific guys to sack the quarterback like Sheldon Richardson was a couple years ago for us. So, yeah, I would love it, Devon Stills, just to be a straight-up pass-rushing defensive tackle who can just get home on occasional plays, and it'd be nice.
No doubt. And who you got next?
I took a different defensive tackle. I picked 168 in the 5th round. Merlin Tule Papatu, defensive tackle, USC. With him, he's 6'5", 305, was a 3-year starter who was highly recruited out of high school. He did have a very nice PFF grade, though, at 74.9. He's known for being accountable, reliable, and tough. That sounds like a Mike Zimmer player to me. Appeared to be stronger in 2020 and faster. Improved pass rush in 2020. NFL size and feel for game is a bit below par. That's one of his weaknesses where, again, I think Andrew Patterson can get that out of him. Again, 5th round pick where you're taking here and you're hoping that you can mold the clay. The best way I describe him is he's Andre Patterson 101. His UCLA tape last season shows the good and the bad, right? Where he can get home. At times he can push back, but as well, he missed some tackles. Again, like I said, his feel for the game is not great, and he missed the occasional tackle when he should have gotten it. He missed at least 3 that I saw on tape against UCLA, which again, why I think he'll fall, even though he did have a good PFF grade. It's not, Bible, it's not the gospel by any means. So you don't want to take it for, everything. And I think we need to go and again add a guy with upside as a defensive tackle. I don't think it should be a particularly high pick, but there's nothing wrong with bringing in a guy here like Marlon Tuipulotu. Yeah, in the 5th round.
All right. Yeah, I mean, like you said, this is the time to add depth to the defensive line. So no issues with that pick there. Then for me in the 6th round, I Rick is going to trade round 6 pick 15 to Philadelphia for round 6 pick 40 and a 7th round pick, which will be the 6th pick of the 7th round. So with this round 6 pick 40, I have another defensive line pick here. This is Kairos Tunga, nose tackle, BYU, 6'2", 325. Um, you know, with the way that the draft went, so I got the nickel rusher. So I went with a backup nose tackle here because I think that what the Vikings are trying to do is basically have two big guys in the middle on first and second downs. So this is basically a backup nose tackle for Michael Pierce. Just to make sure that they would always have these huge guys um, in case of an injury. So you've got Lynch, you've got Mataafa, you've got Stills, um, and Watts. Watts, I really, they played Watts some nose tackle. I really don't think he's a nose tackle. He's got more of the three tech build. So I get Tonga here, who's more of a true nose tackle with his size here in round 6.
It's funny enough. I almost took Tonga instead of Marlin at USC because I think they're very similar value where they're going to go in the draft. Yeah, again, I definitely think they are. I agree with you. That's what I think Pierce and Thomason are there to do, is stop the run, because Mike Zimmer could not do it. You could see visibly upset and how pathetic the defense, the run defense was last season, and they are going to it. That's why they brought in Pierce Townsend. But you do still need to have guys who can, step up and add depth to this team in different situations. And there's nothing wrong with doubling down at, late in the draft. And right, the more lottery picks you have, one might turn out and one might be a bust. So guess what? You have one guy who's on the roster. That's a win in the late draft, in the 6th and the 5th round. If you hit one of two guys, you're happy with that. You're not going to hit every pick in the draft. That's just the true reality of it. So it would be a good decision. Yep.
All right. What's next for you?
I went a little bit of a fun pick for me. It's late in the draft. I still think this guy has a lot of upside. Went 6th round, pick 199. It took Sage Surratt, wide receiver out of Wake Forest. With Surratt, he was an opto, which is another reason why I think he falls down the board. He's 6'3", 215. He is NFL caliber size, obviously. He averaged over 100 yards receiving his sophomore season, right? So that was his last year he played. His weaknesses are he's not an explosive athlete, only ran a 4.6, will not intimidate any quarterbacks in the NFL. One thing I did like about him, though, before I get to the other stuff, is he has slot experience. Again, I've talked about this. You know my opinion on that by now. Punt return ability. Again, KJ Osborne. If you don't do it, buddy, get out. And with Surratt, his hands stick out like crazy on his tape. Okay, this is a guy who will win one-on-one battles. His jump balls are phenomenal. It's like I said, his speed is an issue, and you can see it. Even on great tape versus Louisville, he will not burn you. Okay, he's not a straight outside guy. He will not burn a cornerback in the NFL. He will win a straight up one-on-one battle in the red zone. This guy I'd actually love in the middle of the field to go and bring it down, which is, again, another thing I think the Vikings are missing in the receiving corps. Like Chad Beebe, he had the wonderful game against Carolina. But that's exactly what I think Surratt could be every game, right? Improving a position of weakness a little bit. The receiving corps, obviously, Minnesota is tremendous with the starting two of Jefferson and Thielen, but behind there, it's a little weak, right? I think it's a little bit improvement that could have. And I would not be surprised if they took two receivers who are straight-up slot guys, one having a lot more upside, like Armando St. Brown here that I had, and a guy who could be a steal, slot guy-wise, but is a guaranteed bona fide day one punt returner. And he adds a couple, one or two big catches in a season, like I say, Toronto would be 100% worth it. That's what I want to see this team do. I've convinced myself of this more. One higher draft pick out receiver, one lower, who is mainly like you have with Avery Williamson, different position, but a straight up special teams warrior who's going to deliver on big plays that way.
Absolutely. Nothing wrong with taking a couple bites at the apple, at wide receiver, because, you may hit on one, maybe you don't hit on the other, or maybe one guy just plays a specific role on special teams. At this point in the draft, that's what you're looking for. So, no problem with that. Um, my final pick here, so I picked up that Rick Spielman special coveted seventh rounder. Um, Went back to Jared Dokes. I've had him in previous. I think I had him in previous mock or two. Really like this guy, running back, Cincinnati, 5'11", 228. Is one of the day three draft crushes for me. He's a big back who can move. Ran 4.50 in the 40. So he's got some juice, but he's a big guy. Excels in the passing game as a receiver. Runs hard. Needs to be a little bit more consistent with contact balance, but I think he's shown enough in college to get a shot. He might be a late round steal. Um, I think when did they draft Madison? I think he was a rookie in 2019.
Or he
So
was a fourth. He would have been I remember it well because I love watching the entire draft. I remember Madison was the last pick of the third round. That was when Rick Spielman got crazy and traded like 3 times and added all those sevens that people got upset about.
right. So I mean, and I think we've got Madison after this season. He's only going to be around one more year, so maybe it's time to plan for the future at RB2. So we take note there.
So with him, do you feel he's kind of a poor man, Alexander Madison, or the way you described him seemed kind of like that, where he's not going to burn you, but he's got decent speed. And he's a bit, he likes to run hard. Would you say he's a little bit of a poor man's Madison, and why he'll kind of fall a little bit farther down the board?
Yeah, poor man's Madison. At times he actually reminds me of Latavius Murray, and I think
Okay.
Murray was a 6th-round pick. In that he reminds me of Murray when I see him in the passing game as a receiver, really smooth, out of the backfield. So I think he's not afraid to stick his nose in pass protection, which is important. So just a role player, that you might be able to get on day 3.
And with me, I think this is where I've thought this about this. I have not put one in any of my mocks, but if they do take a running back, that's where I want it. Because we have Delvin. He's special. We all know it. You can make the debate he's the best running back in the league. That's a debate for another day. But, we don't need to go and get a crazy, huge, big name running back. But I do agree with you. It is a little bit of a need because Miradula is only on a 1-year deal. Same with Madison. So, or Madison might have one more year to this, actually. So you don't have a whole lot of depth overall. There's nothing wrong with adding a third guy who can, has reliable hands and doesn't fumble like a Latavius Murray. Potential fine, it'd be good.
Yep.
So now I wanted to discuss this because I feel like this is a burning question in my mind. I really wanted to ask you your opinion. How would you feel? Like, what's the worst scenario for you at 14 if the Vikings sticked and picked and took a guy at 14 that would completely upset you? Number one, bona fide rage.
Number one, bona fide rage. Well, if they take a quarterback, that's not named Zach Wilson or Trevor Lawrence, obviously, I don't think that's going to happen. I think that's almost zero chance of happening. So maybe something more realistic would be if they took a cornerback in the first round. Because I don't think it'll be Surtain. I think he's going to go. But like if they took like Greg Newsome or J.C. Horn at that point, I mean, nothing against those players. Those are great players. But I just wouldn't understand the plan. Like you're trying to win now. You sign these cornerbacks in free agency, to 1-year deals, but you still have, you could have enough cap space next year to bring, if you want to bring back Patrick Peterson or Mackenzie Alexander, you're gonna have to pick one of them. You can probably bring one of those veterans back. You have Harrison Hand, who showed promise. You've got Cameron Dantzler. So what are you saying here? That you don't think Cameron Dantzler is a number one cornerback after the season that he had? It would just be puzzling from roster building. If you want to go cornerback early next season, I understand it, but um, your offensive line is atrocious, and you're saying that you're trying to win now, not addressing it there in favor of a cornerback. I mean, if it's a defensive end that you really think is a game changer, like Quiddy Pay, I'd be less angry. But at cornerback, the guy is not going to. You brought Patrick Peterson. You paid him $8 million. He's going to start. Cam Dantzler is going to start. Mackenzie Alexander is going to play in the slot. This guy's going to be the number 4 this year. That would piss me off.
I'm gonna be honest with you. I think you completely nailed it. Outside of one other position that I have a bad feeling for some reason that they might take, it call me crazy, and I hope they don't do this, would be Christian Barrymore. That's one player that scares me for some reason. I have a bad feeling they're going to take him at 14. I don't know why, because he's the number one player in his class at defense tackle, right? And like you said, they might try to execute some different formations in the defense. I think you absolutely nailed it, though, right? I'll be honest with you. You mentioned Patrick Surtain. I'll be honest. If he's there, I'll be so mad if they take him. I don't care that he's the number one corner. You completely laid it out perfectly for me. You let me hit this ball at the tee. It's Peterson, number 2 corner. Dancer, number 1 corner. Mackenzie Alexander, slot corner. And Jeff Gladney, if he's there, plus Hughes. What are we talking about? The fact that it's even being discussed at cornerback at 4, I will throw my phone if that happens. They cannot do this. This would be Mike Zimmer, Rick Spielman saying, you know what? Forget the offensive line. We care about what we feel is the best BPA. If they do that, the whole fan base should be very disappointed. And I'm going to be honest with you. I'm sticking with this opinion. I don't care if it's a hot take. It doesn't really bother me. People can go at me. I don't care. A quarterback's a bad idea. I'm sorry. It is. You mentioned it. Was it? I think you said 12% of the 60 quarterbacks went to the Super Bowl, and only like 8% won it. Like, it's not a guarantee. People think because Mahomes and Watson and Allen and Baker Mayfield. Guess what, people? None of those people went at 14, did they? No, they did not. None of them. You're not getting a quarterback at 14. If we do trade up, one other point I want to make, I'll say it after, but if we take Barrymore, Surtain, or quarterback, disgusting. D+, F. I don't care that they might be a tremendous player later on. It's a fail because you're trying to win now, like you said. That is not winning now. That is winning in 2023 when you're not in the job. And Mike Zimmer's back at Cincinnati as the defensive coordinator, and Mike Zimmer is going, or Rick Spielman is joining his brother Chris in Detroit as a scout, associate, / assistant GM. That's what will happen. Straight up. They will not be into jobs if they do that. And you know what? I won't feel bad because these guys have had multiple chances at building an offensive line. If they miss it this time, no excuses. Disgusting.
Yeah, I mean, because this team, I go back to 2019. It's 2 games from the Super Bowl. Last year I put that blame basically on the Pierce opt out and the Danielle Hunter out for the season. I think if Pierce played and Danielle Hunter didn't get injured, this team was 7-9. That's probably an 11-win team with those 2 guys in the lineup. So this is a team that is an offensive line away from seriously competing in a conference basically outside of Tampa Bay. There's no other team, and they actually hung with Tampa Bay for.
Yeah, that was actually funny. That was the next time. That was one of the teams we played better in December.
Right. So there's no team outside of Tampa Bay that really puts any fear into me at all. I mean, Green Bay, we beat Green Bay in Green Bay. Nobody else scares me. So at this point, I say, you made the plan to go in with Kirk Cousins. He's shown what he can do. Now give him an offensive line Go out there and get it because you fixed this defense. You brought in Dalvin Tomlinson, Michael Pierce is back, Daniil Hunter's back. You know, you've got Cameron Dantzler, you've got Harrison Smith. This defense is ready to go. So get that offensive line done.
I agree. So you kind of went at the point that I was going to make here. So I'm just going to ask you another question. What would make you smile ear to ear from the first after day 2 is complete? Forget even day 3 hasn't even happened with the boatload of picks we have then. Day 2 is done. What will make you so happy? What position would make you say this is an A+ draft if they hit proper defensive players to add and make Zimmer happy in the 4th through 7th round? What would be perfect setup?
You know, if they can somehow come away, excuse me, with 3 picks in the first 2 rounds. So like we both had scenarios where, you know, in mine I had a first and 2 seconds, and then you actually had 2 picks in the first round, which I think is similar, you know, to getting high end talent. Like I would smile ear to ear if they somehow came out with an offensive line starter, a dynamic wide receiver, and an edge player within the first 2 rounds. If they came out with all that, so like you can accomplish that with, you know, like it's, you know, like I had here, a trade down, you pick up a 2nd round pick, and then you come up, you package your, you know, your third and, you know, 4th and 5th or whatever, and come up for another 2nd round pick. Or you do something like you did, you know, trading down and getting 2 late first rounders.
Yeah.
You know, so if they came away with that, something like, you know, the AVT. I mean, if I really want to dream, like AVT, Jason Away, and Rondale Moore. I mean, that's just ridiculously good. So, you know, maybe something like that, or you know, Richie Grant. You know, that's fine with me too.
You know, call me crazy. I'm gonna be honest with you, and this might come, and people might not like this opinion, but I'm gonna say this: if this is implying, I'm gonna say one. I'm gonna make one other scenario after this, but say that there are some Slater and Sewell are gone, right? And I could see the scenario. This is a real scenario in my opinion. That's why I did this trade. I think Devontae Smith could fall to 14, and I get it. It would be wonderful to have Devontae Smith. I'm not bashing him. I think he's a tremendous player. But you know Baltimore is desperate to have a player like that. I'm telling you, I see it, Jason. I see it. I think they traded for specifically a 1st-round pick, right, to get a high-end receiver in a trade-up. I'm telling you. Mark it down. I'm telling you, they are going to trade up to get a receiver. It's so blaringly obvious. Think about the picks they have, 27 and 31, right?
Right.
What is Baltimore really going to do with that at 20? Now, no disrespect to Elijah Moore, Rashad Bateman, who I actually don't think falls there. I don't think Bateman will be there at 27. So they're losing out on the top, 4, 5 receivers. I don't think Baltimore's going to do that. I think they know they're a receiver away from seeing, like him or not, Lamar Jackson needs to have a high-end number 1 receiver to see exactly what he is. If he's going to tremendously be a Michael Vick story, where if he stays on the field unlike Vick did, he could be a star, or he will be a Colin Kaepernick, where he just was close, right? He had a great year, won the MVP, but fell off badly.
Right.
To me, that's what I think the Ravens are going to do. So, to me, this is what I want. This is my dream scenario. It's Cosme, it's a DN, and forget it. Get rid of 78, 119, and 125, and take Dylan Ranis, the offensive tackle out of North Dakota State, and you would have a line of the following: Cosme, Ezra Cleveland, to me, Bradbury, Ranis, and then O'Neal. Because I've heard Ranis could play potentially tackle or guard, I think. I'm pretty sure about that.
Right.
So
Yep.
You go and do that. Imagine the O-line. Just imagine it. Forget if you don't, Rick Spoonman. Enough of your 7s, 4 7s, and 2 6. I don't care. You have to get rid of that and sack. So you have, I don't know about you, but this is my opinion. I'd rather, the Vikings have 6 picks. Seriously. From their 10 that they have right now, they get rid of 4. But they have a great O-line on paper. well, like you said it, we can contend. We were the only team that beat Green Bay last season, and that gave Tampa fits in the same year. Because I know New Orleans beat Tampa last season before, but they got beat down bad by the Packers.
Right.
So we could do this. We could do if they go and finally make this a priority. They have every ample opportunity to do it. And I'm sorry to me, and I've said this. I don't know if you saw my tweets. I said this. This is the season. This season starts April 29th. It doesn't start August and in September. It starts April 29th. If they do not come out with two quality players that could come in and step up and be on this offensive line, it's not good enough for me. It's a failure. I don't care. They get a good edge, a good corner. To me, they need to get two bona fide studs in the outside line. Even if it's a edge, Kendrick Green, right, in the third, who I like a lot. I know you like a lot as well. He has good tape. They go and do that. I don't care if it's two guards, Elijah Vera Tucker, Kendrick Green. I don't care if it's Wyatt Davis, Elijah Vera Tucker. I don't care how they do it. They need to get two potential starter players on this outside line.
If they were to come away with Cosme and Radens or Wyatt Davis and AVT, and the Vikings don't start both of them, I'm personally coming with a pitchfork and a blowtorch.
And to be fair, they would deserve the backlash they get on Twitter and social media. They deserve it. It would be. It's honest to God. I don't condone protests at this time, right, with COVID and stuff, because we don't want anyone getting sick. But they would deserve the hate they would get on social media if they do not. Because it's possible, Jason. It really is. Like, you look at the O line is there to be had. There's 20 good players on this offensive line, this class, that can come in and start and compete. They need to be aggressive. Forget the corner that Zimmer loves and claps on by himself in the on the draft room in his ranch. I don't care. Go and actually get players who will play day one on this team, who will help her. I'm sick and tired of seeing this team be good offensively, but never have great weapons. We have the top tier weapons in the NFL compared to anyone. You compare our weapons, our receiving core, running back, and tight end to anyone in the league, and we can compete. Our O-line is what holds us back constantly, year after year. It needs to stop. It needs to stop now. One last thing I wanted to say to you is, do you think that Tom Pelissero tweet that we saw today mentioning that the Vikings are looking to trade up in the first round for a tackle, does that delight you? Because it delights me.
Yeah, I mean, it was interesting what he said, because he's talking about several spots, and we know about the Giants at 11 willing to move down, but now he's talking about Detroit at 7, Carolina at 8, and Denver at 9. So, yeah, I mean, I went through a few different scenarios in my head that where they could trade up. I'm thinking probably anywhere from 8 to 11. I think the Lions at 7 are probably entertaining somebody trading up for a quarterback. So New England is making calls. I think that's New England coming up for Justin Fields at 7.
That's a good sign.
And then if Carolina is willing to move out of that spot, Denver might be willing to move out of that spot because maybe Denver and Carolina are not looking for Mac Jones. So they might those teams are just looking to add more picks. That could be a spot where if Slater or Sewell fell, because probably one of them will go top 6, either to Cincinnati or Miami, depending on, I think Cincinnati will they're either going to go with Chase or one of the tackles.
Mm-hmm.
And then Miami will just pick whatever they didn't take. So one of the tackles will be there. One of the top 2 tackles will be sitting there, probably at 8. So they could go. So the Vikings could, if they're really sold on Sewell or Slater, they may love both of them, and it doesn't matter who was taken at 5 or 6. So they may still want one of them.
Win either way.
Yeah, they could go up to 8. My only question is, are they in love with 3 or are they only in love with 2? Are they also in love with Darisaw? Like, would they, like, let's say one of them
Mm,
gets picked there, would they be willing to go from 14 to 11 for Darisaw? That's my question.
that's a good question. That's a good point. I'm gonna paint a scenario for you because I actually agree with you. I think you nailed that. I don't think I really need to get into detail more about it. I don't. I love the point you said about Detroit. We're not trading with a division rival. It's going to cost an arm and a leg to get picks from the seventh overall pick from Detroit. They're going to want to gouge us hard. But a team like Denver, I think George Payne, that matters. Like it or not, I don't care. Everyone knows inside people who used to work for an organization who have a bond and a relationship will be nicer to each other, straight up. Especially when they're different conferences now. George Payne and Rick Spoon got along really well. Why do you think he declined so many GM jobs? He liked being there. He did not have a problem with Rick Spillman. If he did, he would have gone ages ago, at least 3 years ago. So for me, I agree with your points. I think you nailed it. I think 8 or 9 is the realistic scenario. Slater or now, I agree with you. I don't think Slater will be a trade-up option unless it's like 11 with the Giants. I don't think they'll go all the way up to 8 or 9 for Darisaw, but I agree with you. 11 possibly. One last scenario I wanted to paint out to you. That's a crazy one, but I think it's not impossible because the position players in this class. I think you might have an idea where I'm going here. Imagine if, and I think this is possible. Imagine if it went Chase 5 to Cincy, former buddy of Burrow. That matters. People don't have to like it. It matters. And then 6, Kyle Pitts to Miami. I've noticed with Tua, he loves tight ends. And I think him and Mike Castellino could be huge for them. Because Tua he does not like throwing the ball deep. And tight ends are right mid or intermediate routes, right? They're not going to run a deep 40-yard post. I think that could be, if that scenario happened to you, do you think Minnesota would go and potentially give up a lot to land Penei Sewell at 8? Say the Detroit Lions say, you know what, forget it. We love Justin Fields. We love Jalen Waddle, whoever that ends up being. Could you see Penei Sewell falling to 8?
Yeah, I do because, like you said now, and Kyle Pitts is considered to be the best. Some people consider him the best player in the draft. So that could definitely happen where, Chase gets taken 5 and Miami takes Pitts at 6. They just couldn't resist. And who would blame them? So Detroit at 7, that could be a spot like Pelissero was saying, New England's making calls. That could be Justin Fields there. Now Detroit could just take Justin Fields, or they could choose to trade it maybe to New England. And then, you could potentially have your choice of the top 2. Forget about the top 3. The top 2 offensive tackles at 8.
That don't sound crazy, right? That doesn't sound insane. I think that's possible.
Yeah, I mean, and what if somebody came up and took one, but there's still one left there, and now you have that relationship with Denver and George Payton.
Yep.
You can move up to 9. I could totally see it happening in this particular spot because it's not a massive jump. It's not like you're going from 14 to 3. You're going to 8 or 9 to get your guy. You still have plenty of picks to address other needs. I'm just looking at, let's see, the Rich Hill trade chart here. This is supposedly the one that's in big use. So, I mean, they need another 62 points, which that's basically that's their 3rd round pick. Maybe they have to
78?
Yeah, 78. So they have to give up 78 to get up there. And maybe, I don't know, maybe you throw in a future 4th on top of that just to sweeten it up.
Yep.
You could get up there for one of the top 2 tackles. I'd do that all day long.
100%. I wanted to just ask you that because, I think that's possible. And the reason why I say that, if you think about it, right, Miami has 2 first-round picks. So they're not 3, sorry, 6 and 17. And Cincinnati has the 5th pick in the 2nd round. So they can land Dylan Radis. They could land Sam Cosby potentially. Wyatt Davis. It's not a guarantee that they need to go, and they have Jonah Williams on that roster. I think people forget how good Jonah Williams was coming out of his class.
Right.
Like, it might actually be the year, Jason. And maybe I'm delusional and getting myself too excited, and I'm not going to until it happens. But I genuinely believe we're going to do it. Because the fact that Tom Pelissero, 3 days before the draft, posts something like that to his social media, shows you the Vikings want to tell you that. They do not, people don't realize, when things come out, it's not because these media guys are geniuses. It's because there's intel from the team. Rick's saying, hey, guys, I might be willing to be the guy that you want to get traded. At Denver, they're an interesting one, and I think they might acquire Teddy. I've heard lots of rumors of that. Again, George Payne, right?
Right.
He was part of that process, drafting Teddy. I wouldn't be surprised they bring in Teddy Bridgewater to compete with Drew Lock, and they go and get a high-end player at 14. They could get so many players to fit that team. I think for Denver, trading down is a better scenario than it is staying at 9. Because they already have a good line. They already have a good offensive lineman in Garrett Bowles at left tackle. They don't really need one. So they're a team to me where I think they might even trade down twice in the draft. Call me crazy because they need a running back a little bit too. Because Melvin Gordon's not getting any younger. They got rid of Philip Lindsay in the offseason. I think maybe it'll be a later round pick for Denver. But they don't have the offensive tackle need like the Vikings do. And I think the Vikings are a perfect marriage for Denver. I think it's very realistic and possible that happens. If it does, I think every Vikings fan will take a nice deep breath and have a nice sigh of relief feeling because it finally will be done. The guard spot and tackle spot will be addressed, and we can finally move on with this.
Absolutely. And the more I'm thinking about it, because you made those points about Miami and Cincinnati. Miami has so much draft capital. Why in the world are they going to pass up the best player available?
Exactly.
In Kyle Pitts when they have other, excellent draft capital to address the rest of their needs. If pick 18, they can take a guy.
And I think we could very easily land a Tevin Jenkins at 17, no? Or an
Right.
AVT. They could land the top guard in the class still at 17. So
Right.
I 100% agree with you. I think this could be it. This could be then we take Patrick Surtain and my heart's smashed in a million pieces. But it's going to be fun. These next 3 days are going to be really, really exciting.
Absolutely. 100%. Yeah. So this, that pretty much wraps it up for me. Do you have anything more to add on that?
Okay, I'll ask you one more thing.
Sure.
How badly would you like a backup quarterback in the draft? 1 to 10, out of want. 10 being really desperately needing one, and 1 being whatever. We could sign one in free agency or trade for Gardner Minshew. That was the one that I actually remember. I wanted to mention that to you. Gardner Minshew could be a guy we could land too for a 5th round pick. Imagine him behind Kirk Cousins. That's a darn good quarterback room too.
Yeah, I mean, you could, Josh Rosen might also be a guy that could become available because of what's going to happen with San Francisco. And I thought he showed enough to at least be a solid backup.
Yeah.
I'd say it's about a 5. Like I do think that they could go out in free agents. They could sign Nick Mullins. I have really no idea why they were talking about Sean Mannion when Nick Mullins is available.
Yeah, that's a good point too. He's an upgrade.
He'd be an upgrade. So they can do these other things.
Go ahead. Sorry, I don't want to.
Yeah, no, they can do these things. Like, you can trade a 5th round pick for, one of these other guys like Minshew or Josh Rosen that would immediately upgrade the situation behind Cousins. You could sign Nick Mullins in free agency, or you can. I think the possibility of trading a day 3 pick or signing a guy in free agency increases if they trade up to go land a Sewell or a Slater, because then you don't have as much mid-round cap. Like if you had to give up 78, now you're not going to spend 78 on Davis Mills. You're going to do something else with that because you have other needs.
No, I think that's a good point. And I'd love to bring back our old best friend that Mike Zimmer never gave the time of day to in Kyle Sluter. I never understand that. Never will understand that. That goes to my point of why I don't trust Mike Zimmer with guys who could actually be potential upside guys. Look at Tyler Heineke, too.
Yeah.
Look what he did for Washington. How did he never land the backup job? Because he was an undrafted kid out of Old Dominion. It's the arrogance that I'm talking about. I talked about, on and on. And I don't want to take up too much more. But, to me, I agree with you. I think for me, it's actually a 3. I want the quarterback job, but my feeling of the sense of the team. Mind you, they have spent a lot of time on Colin Mond. Could be something to watch. I'll ask one more question, and I think I'm going to end it for the podcast. You could take any player in the draft, Jason, to fit your favorite, most ideal scenario player is blank.
Oh, wow. It's probably between Sewell and Slater. I know Slater is more polished, they say, but there's concerns with the arm length. I really would be fine with either one of these guys. Sewell is just his upside is generational. I think he has the potential to be the next Trent Williams. So I'm gonna go there. So Sewell or Slater. So that's why that Pelissero report's got me really excited.
Yep. That I feel the exact same way. To me, it's Sewell by an inch, but they get one of those, I would jump up and down. I'll be so happy. And with Slater, there's people that say he could be guard. Even if he does end up being a guard for us, it's still worth it because he's a top tier player. Mind you, let me make this perfectly clear. I want him at tackle. I do not want him at guard because Ezra Cleveland has shown ability to be a guard. Sorry, Ezra, but it's okay. You're gonna make a lot of money anyway. That's what I want. Left tackle. Penny Sewell or Rashad Slater, exactly like you. You've nailed it. All right, I'm good to go here. I'm pumped. 3 days, man. 3 more days.
All right. Well, Mike, thanks for joining me again, and thank all of our listeners for tuning in to another edition of Viking Spin. Draft is 3 days away. We'll see you guys next time.
Peace.